Hello, welcome to the second module in the 5 Pillars of Mentoring series. I am Patrick D. Smith and I am your host facilitator. This session will focus on communication. Please remember that these are universal traits for mentoring and that this module itself will be focusing on communication. Now, those 5 modules, as a review, include action, communication, trust, resources, and assessment. The objectives for this particular module will be identify factors which contribute to the communication process and utilize effective communication techniques with your mentee. So, what is communication? Communication is the transfer of information from the sender to the receiver, with the information being understood by both. Now, there are various aspects of communication, different factors that take place that really contribute to the process of communication. Now, communication is arguably one of the most important components in the mentoring process because it serves as the foundation of the mentoring relationship. For instance, through communication, you express expectations for the mentoring relationship, goals are communicated, trust and understanding is eventually established, and it's the basis for learning. That is to say, it allows learning to take place. In order for you to communicate effectively with your business mentee, you have to have the right elements in place for it. In order for you to recognize whether or not you are connecting with your mentee, you should have a certain awareness of yourself, as well as being able to read your mentee. The next few slides will provide some tips on what effective communication looks like. It is important to communicate with the listener in mind. It has been said that one should listen twice as much as you speak. This adage certainly must be followed if you hope to guide your mentee to the level of success they want to achieve. Here are 10 tips that will help you effectively communicate with your mentee. First, maintain eye contact. Maintaining eye contact helps to ensure that you are focusing on the speaker and interested in what they are saying. 2, be attentive. Make sure that you are present during the conversation by paying attention to your mentee. Number 3, don't interrupt by providing quick solutions. Remember, as a mentor, you are here to guide your mentee to the solution they are looking for, not to provide the quick fix. Also, interrupting sends the following messages. What you say doesn't matter. I don't care about your concerns. I don't have time for you. Number 4, wait to ask clarifying questions. Wait for the right time to ask them, during a pause perhaps. Even ask your mentee if you can ask a question for clarity. But please do not interrupt them, and please wait for the right moment to ask for clarifying questions. Number 5, employ active communication techniques. Be engaging by providing feedback, occasionally nodding, or demonstrate interest with phrases such as, or I follow you. Number 6, look for nonverbal cues. This is extremely important. You need to know if you're connecting or if you're losing your mentee. By looking for those nonverbal cues, it will allow you to adjust accordingly as you're communicating in the process of providing instructions or guidance to your mentee. Communicate clear and concisely. Make sure that your communication is precise and concrete. Also, don't use wordy expressions and avoid repeating yourself. Use specific facts and figures to make the point. It's important also to communicate in relative terms. Use correct and familiar language your mentee will understand. Don't talk above their heads or in a way that they'll have a problem following you. Communicate without assumptions. Extremely important. Listen without judging or criticizing your mentee. That's the first rule. Be aware of mental filters which can affect your ability to listen and understand your mentee. Also, don't jump to conclusions or be a sentence grabber. In other words, don't finish your mentee's sentences for them. Let them complete their thought and get their point across. Also, it is important as you communicate to meet regularly. Meeting regularly ensures your mentee that you are focused upon them and you're interested in helping them to grow and develop. It also says that you're open to meeting and that you want to share in their success. Here are some additional tips which can help you to communicate more effectively with your business mentee. You want to maintain flexibility, maintain confidentiality, maintain humility, and maintain respect. Let's just go over each of these one by one. Flexibility. Basically, having the flexibility with your mentee allows you to have different modes or different methods in which you can meet them. As a mentor, you should be open to different ways in which you can communicate with your mentee. One-on-one meetings are actually the best. It allows you to be personal, read the body language, and also allows you to look for nonverbal cues. The utilization of technology is also important. Texting, emailing, Twitter, all these allow for quick and more frequent contact and for quicker responses. However, this may not always be the case in every situation. It may not always be realistic. And also there's good old-fashioned phone calls. Again, you need to make the arrangement with your mentee, which is the best way to communicate. Whatever you do, keep the lines of communications open. Confidentiality is a must. It is extremely important. Confidentiality leads to trust and respect, leads to confidence in the relationship. Keep in mind, don't share or spread information between you and your mentee. However, how do you account for confidentiality in your relationship? You utilize verbal agreements, contractual agreements. Take a moment and think about it. Remember, loose lips sink ships or could end the relationship. Violating rules of confidentiality has the following effect, which are all detrimental to the relationship. It destroys trust and respect, diminishes the confidence in the relationship. Also, it can be bad for the mentoring organization. Don't share or spread information between you and your mentee. Remember, we all live in a small world where word gets around rather quickly. Violating the confidence of your mentee will not only harm the mentoring relationship, it will also leave a stain on your program and also have an effect upon your reputation. Be humble and respectful of your mentee. A little humility and respect goes a long way. Never exude an attitude which suggests you are better than your mentee. Never belittle them on their ideas. Remember, while you have more experience, you have to meet them where they are. Always treat your mentee with respect by ensuring them that their issues are important. Always be thoughtful and appreciative. In addition, respect their time as well. Make sure that you show up and follow through and follow up with them as necessary. Now, when it comes to communication, it's important to be aware of the communication barriers. Take a moment to look at this definition and really come to understand what are the barriers of communication. The next slide will show some of these barriers. Now, there are barriers which can have a negative effect upon the communication which could take place between you and your mentee. These barriers can occur at any time depending upon the environment and can happen anywhere. There are several environmental factors which could serve as barriers to the communication process. The factors indicated in the above image can be considered external barriers. During the course of interacting with your mentee, how have any external barriers impacted your ability to communicate? Again, take a moment and think about it. Barriers to communication can occur internally as well. These barriers occur as mental filters and can have a real impact upon your ability to communicate effectively. Mental filters often are based upon expectations and experiences. Mental filters affect our perception of reality. In order to overcome our mental filters, we must begin with self and become aware of any prejudices which may impede the process. In addition, we must focus on the content of the ideas being communicated, not your mentee's appearance or the way a person speaks. Take a moment to consider any filters which may have impacted the communication process between you and your mentee. Do you know your communication style or the way you approach your mentee when you communicate with them? Take a look at the following grid to determine what your communication style is. And then also think about the communication style of your mentee. Depending upon the two, you may have to make adjustments to make sure that you are adequately and effectively making the connection with your mentee. At this point, let's take a look at the video and see what some of the participants in the workshop had to say. Communication. I'm going to start going rather quickly through these, and if you want me to stop at any time, you want to make a comment, just raise your hand. Be clear and concise. I can't stress that anymore. Be clear and concise. I run a mentoring program. There have been times I have given instruction to my students, and they do something totally different. Now, there's something called expert knowledge and novice knowledge. And basically, from a novice perspective, how they put information together by bits, or however they do that, how they construct their knowledge so that they can get things done, is very different from an expert. And you're speaking from the perspective of an expert. So, you have to explain things in relative terms, and you can't make assumptions. You can't say you can't say X and expect the person to understand X. You have to explain what X is, and you have to be able to break it down. You have to be able to scaffold is the term. Sometimes you have to be able to scaffold and help that person develop. Confidentiality is a must. So we're going to come back to that. Being humble. Why is humility important in mentoring? Why is it important?
Suppressing your
Microphone.
Sorry. Suppressing your ego and allowing the other person to develop their points and move with the flow. But suppressing your ego, I think, is key.
That's very important. As they say, nobody likes a know-it-all. No one likes someone who's arrogant. Even though you may, and you should know a lot more than your protege, but you don't want to diminish them in the process. Maintaining open communication, that's key. You cannot be, if you're never available, again, you need to think about being a mentor, meeting regularly, and respect. Effective communication and ineffective communication look very differently. Effective communication entails the following lists. Take a moment and consider. Do you employ all these practices as you communicate with your mentee? Are you effectively getting the point across? Do they understand you? Now take a look at the list under the ineffective communication category. If you have problems communicating or getting the point across to your mentee, perhaps you should consider some of the bulleted items in this list. What other ways can you either effectively or ineffectively communicate that will allow you to get the point across, or that may harm or impede the communication process? Remember, when you communicate, And in order to communicate effectively, communicate with listening in mind. Listen twice as much as you speak. Communicate clearly and concisely. Communicate in relative terms. Communicate without assumptions. Maintain flexibility. Maintain confidentiality. Maintain humility. Maintain respect. And for additional information, please click on this link and you will find some additional notes that will help you in the process of communicating with your mentor, your mentee, and improving the communication process. I'm Patrick Smith, and I certainly hope you have enjoyed this module.